Welcome to Politics for Patriots. Here's your host, the eviscerator of progressive nonsense, the executioner of imbecility, and the grim reaper of BS, Eddie Zipper.
All right, welcome to episode number 69 of the Politics for Patriots podcast.
69, dudes!
Thank you so much to everyone who is listening to the show every week. If you enjoy it, please subscribe on iTunes, and you can download older episodes on iTunes or at my website, www.eddiezipperer.com. That's www.eddiezipperer.com. All right, the Democratic Party thinks that the Constitution is written on an Etch-A-Sketch and that they can shake it all they want without hurting the country. You may have heard that they have an amendment to allow 16-year-olds to vote. Here's Nancy Pelosi talking about 16-year-olds being able to vote.
I myself have always been for lowering the voting age to 16. I think it's really important to capture kids when they're in high school, when they're interested in all of this, when they're learning about government, to be able to vote.
Did you catch the term capture? Yeah, let me translate this for you. It's really important to capture them before they actually know things. Apparently, according to Nancy Pelosi's personal beliefs, it is very important to let tide gobblers decide the public policy that the rest of us grown-ups actually have to live by. There is literally no part of our system that Democrats won't destroy in order to benefit themselves in the short term. I'm going to go further into that. That's what this show is about today. It's about how the Democrats are willing to destroy our constitutional system just to benefit their party in the short term. That's what the whole show is about today. But first, I'm going to lead into that by talking about President Trump using his veto power for the very first time. Trump declared a national emergency at the border, as you probably already know. Congress passed a resolution of disapproval some Republicans were on board with, and then President Trump vetoed that resolution of disapproval. Now it will be returned to the House where it originated with the president's objections, and they will have the opportunity to override the president's veto, which will require a 2/3 supermajority in both houses of Congress. And unfortunately for them, they are not going to come close to that. They're not going to get anywhere near 2/3 in both houses. The veto is going to stand. So our system of checks and balances, as you can see, is alive and well. Congress passed something. The president vetoed it. Congress will have the opportunity to override the veto, which I believe will fail. That's how the framers designed all of this to work. All right, so I want to start by telling you that if your senator or congressperson is saying that Trump declaring a national emergency is illegal or unconstitutional, they are lying to you. They're welcome to disagree on whether or not what's happening at the border is a national emergency. But the law leaves that up to the president. So if they have different ideas about what constitutes a national emergency, they're in the wrong branch of government. They should pack up their office and they should go and run for president, because that's who gets to decide what is a national emergency. And then Congress can try to do a resolution of disapproval. The president can veto it. Congress can override the veto. If they can't override the veto, then the president wins. Rand Paul is a perfect example of someone who is lying about all of this. And I like Rand Paul. I'm really a libertarian myself. So it pains me to say it, but Rand Paul is lying. He tweeted yesterday that the Constitution clearly states that money cannot be spent unless Congress has passed a law to do so. Yeah, no kidding, Rand. Guess what? Congress did pass a law to do so.
I'm here to help you with your history report.
The 94th Congress passed a law appropriating the money, and surely a senator must know that. Surely there is someone smart around to explain to him. It concerns me to see all these people decide that they don't like the law, ergo, it must not really be the law. That's not how this works, people. I want everyone who listens to this show to be able to cite the law that Trump is using. You should learn exactly which law it is. So if your family or friends challenge you on it, or your congressman or the media attempt to mislead you about it, you will know exactly what the law is. That's the beauty of knowledge. Information like this is, it's kind of dry and boring. But if you know the information, if you're willing to engage in what is dry and boring, then nobody can spin you. Nobody can lie to you. Nobody can misrepresent things to you. Nobody can trick you. Okay, there are actually two laws here that we are going to cite. The first one is 50 U.S. Code 1621, which simply says that if there is an emergency, the president can declare a national emergency. It doesn't say anybody has to agree with him. It doesn't say Congress has to pass the national emergency. There are essentially zero restrictions on the president's ability to decide what is or is not a national emergency, absent 2/3 in both houses of Congress. If 2/3 of both houses of Congress can agree, then they get to tell the president what is not a national emergency. But if you don't have that 2/3 agreement in both houses of Congress, nobody gets to decide except the president. Okay, this is a terrible law, by the way. I'm not arguing that. This law is just junk. It is way too broad, and it places way too much power in the executive branch. So I understand why so many people are eager to pretend that it isn't the law. But too bad, it is the law. So it's a terrible law because it hands over legislative branch power to the executive. The legislative branch should not sign over their powers to the executive, but they can. They have done it lots of times in American history. Okay, it's not a good law. Only an idiot would have voted for this law. Everyone in America can thank the 94th Congress for this law. They passed it. They left it ridiculously broad and left it to be defined by the president. They left it to the president's discretion and no one else's. All right, they handed over the legislative branch powers on this to the executive branch. So guess what the 94th Congress looked like? A filibuster-proof Democratic supermajority in the Senate and a veto-proof Democratic majority in the House. So good job, Democrats. This is your party's law that President Trump is using. Maybe they had to pass it to find out what was in it. I don't know. Did Pelosi invent that, or is it Democrat tradition? It doesn't matter at this point, because once it's the law, it's the law. And so the 94th Congress's law is the reason that Trump has the authority to unilaterally decide what is or is not a national emergency. Okay, so that same bunch of Democrats in Congress also passed the law that appropriates the money. Rand Paul says he voted against the national emergency because only Congress can appropriate money. Well, good news, Rand. You can hop on board because Congress did appropriate the money. Here's the law. It's 10 U.S. Code 2808. That's 10 U.S. Code 2808. Construction authority in the event of a declaration of war or national emergency. Here's what 10 U.S. Code 2808 says. In the event of a declaration of war or the declaration by the President of a national emergency in accordance with the National Emergencies Act that requires use of the armed forces, the Secretary of Defense, without regard to any other provision of law, may undertake military construction projects and may authorize the secretaries of the military departments to undertake military construction projects, not otherwise authorized by law, that are necessary to support such use of the armed forces. Such projects may be undertaken only within the total amount of funds that have been appropriated for military construction, including funds appropriated for family housing that have not been obligated. Boom. There it is, Rand. That's Congress appropriating the money right there. See, I know what's in 10 U.S. Code 2808, so Rand Paul can't lie to me, and neither can anybody else, because I know it's there and I know it's appropriated. I know who has the power to declare the national emergency and what kind of limitations are set upon that power to declare the national emergency, so nobody can lie to me. That's the beauty of having the knowledge. Nobody can trick you if you know what the law is. Lots of the true conservative types, you know what a true conservative is, right? It's a person who is conservative, but they're always on the side of the Democrats because they get all their information from the Washington Post. They operate under the assumption that you could just read the Washington Post and the New York Times and you have to go along with what's in it. They set the truth, right? So these big mainstream media companies, they get to decide what the truths are that we operate upon. Right? True conservatives are the kind of conservatives who want to be the first to excoriate Nick Sandmann for smiling. National Review is supposed to be a conservative outlet. They had an opinion piece that Nick Sandmann spit on the cross. Why? Because they were operating on the assumption that what the Washington Post was reporting about Nick Sandmann was true, which it was not, and now they're going to get sued for $250 million. Basically, true conservatives are conservative, but they're willing to operate under liberal assumptions. The assumptions that liberals give to them, which are always wrong. Alright, anyway, I call these people the mugwumps. So a lot of the mugwumps think what Trump is doing is illegal or unconstitutional. They are wrong. 10 U.S. Code 2808 appropriates the money. Call Rand Paul's office or shoot him an email. Ask him why 10 U.S. Code 2808 does not appropriate the money. There's no answer to that question because that law explicitly appropriates the money. It was passed by gigantic Democrat majorities in the 94th Congress. Did you read 10 U.S. Code 2808, Senator Paul? Did you read it?
I was elected to lead, not to read.
Now what the Democrats will do after they're unable to override President Trump's veto, they're going to try to use the courts to get around the Constitution. They're going to go judge shopping for a court that will come up with some reason that the actual law somehow isn't really the law because they don't like the law the way that it is. It's disgraceful, and it's at the heart of how the Democratic Party operates. Okay, even if I think a particular Democrat is less objectionable than other Democrats, I don't vote for anyone affiliated with the Democratic Party. If a Democrat is running unopposed for local dog catcher or whatever, I just write somebody in. I vote most often for Republicans, even Republicans that I don't like that much, because the Republican Party, regardless of its many shortcomings, operates within the system like they are supposed to, while the Democratic Party tries to change the system to benefit them in the short term. Okay? The way to think about this, imagine governing is a football game, and the political parties are the teams playing each other. The Republican Party has a really strong passing game. So what are they going to do? They're going to have the coaches draw up a bunch of pass plays to take advantage of their strong passing game and score some touchdowns. The Democrats, if they were like the Republicans, would be preparing their defenses to protect against the pass. Add a couple more defensive backs, come up with some pass blitzes that you think will work. But that's not how they do it. Instead, they try to change the rules of football to get rid of the forward pass. That is how the Democratic Party operates. They are willing to ruin the entire sport for the short-term gain of their team. That is unacceptable to me. They should operate within the system. If you are losing, change your ideas, not the system. Change your ideas, not the rules. Think about what we've seen from Democrats since Trump was elected. And you have to understand what they think about Trump's election. I think Mark Halperin, who is gone from punditry now because he sexually harasses women, but I think Mark Halperin summed it up best when he said this.
Outside of the Civil War, World War II, and including 9/11, this may be the most cataclysmic event the country's ever seen.
That's what he said. He said that Trump being elected was more cataclysmic than 9/11. That is actually what these idiots think, and many of them want to tear down the Constitution over it. Right now, the Democrats are championing an amendment to allow 16-year-olds to vote in every single state, like I talked about earlier. That is insane. They want tide gobblers to vote. Are they fans of this because they think children have great ideas about public policy? No, they are fans of this because they think children have their ideas about policy. You see, children don't know very much about policy, and people who don't know very much about policy vote for Democrats. Right? If Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez goes around the country saying the world is going to end in 12 years unless we vote for the Green New Deal, who do you think that will scare into supporting the Green New Deal no matter what it costs and no matter what it is? Children!
Some scientists have said that we have 12 years to turn this around.
See, it's much easier to brainwash young people into believing ridiculous things with no evidence than it is to convince grown-ups to believe ridiculous things with no evidence. I mean, you can get some grown-ups. Some people don't need to see anything. They just, oh, somebody said that, and now I'm going to repeat it because I like that person. Take a look at the CNN exit polls. Among 18 to 24-year-olds, Clinton beat Trump by 22 percentage points in the 2016 election. If you take that age group out, Trump would have won the popular vote. So the youngest age group is the best age group for Democrats, so naturally they want to expand it. They want to change the Constitution to expand that age group. All they care about is getting more Democrat votes. They want to change the rules to get the votes. They don't want to have better ideas to get the votes. They want to change the rules to get the votes. Right? They don't want to change their defense to match up better with the offense. Instead, they want to change the rules of the game. Here's a gem from Beto O'Rourke, who's running for the Democratic nomination. Beto O'Rourke said he thinks the Supreme Court should work like this. Each party picks 5 justices, and the 10 appointed justices pick 5 more justices. That's how he thinks putting people on the Supreme Court should work. I think he just made it up off the top of his head. I swear to you, every time Beto O'Rourke opens his mouth, I suddenly become Ron Swanson shopping at Lowe's.
Hi there. Is there a project you're working on? I know more than you. All right.
That's me every time Beto talks. He's like, I have an idea for picking Supreme Court justices, and I'm like,
I know more than you.
I mean, let's go ahead and take him seriously and take a look at his idea systematically. We're smart people here, so let's not just think in terms of, well, there are too many conservatives on the Supreme Court. What can we do to destroy the court? Let's think in terms of how our system works. That's what conservatives do because our priority is America in the long term, not a political party's power in the short term. All right, so the Constitution, which is a really great read, Beto, you might want to check it out. The Constitution says he being the President of the United States, he shall nominate and by and with the advice and consent of the Senate shall appoint judges of the Supreme Court. Why did the framers, who were probably born into this world with more IQ points than Beto has today, why did they set it up that way? Well, it's very simple, and yet it is also very brilliant. It gives the executive branch a check over the judicial branch, right? The president gets to nominate the person. He gets to pick the justice. He gets to nominate them, and then later he gets to appoint them if he can get permission from the Senate. So it gives a legislative check to the Senate over the executive branch. The president can pick someone, but the Senate has to confirm that person. That also gives the Senate a legislative check over the judicial branch, right? Because they're helping to pick who the justices will be. So that one brilliant little clause contains 3 checks. Executive over judicial, legislative over executive, and legislative over judicial. All those checks are the best part of our system. They're everywhere. Sometimes dumb Congress signs them away, but pretty much they're all over the place. You can't get rid of the constitutional ones. So now Beto, who thinks he's smarter than the framers, wants to change things up and do it like the political parties are picking dodgeball teams in gym class. And because I said dodgeball, we have to have a sound from dodgeball. Let me find a good Beto-y one.
Oh, I don't think I'm a lot dumber than you thought that I thought I was once.
Nailed it. Alright, so this genius wants to take a power from the executive branch and hand that power over to political parties. He thinks the Republicans and Democrats should pick. And then those justices that the political parties pick should pick the rest of the justices. Guess what he did? He just got rid of all the checks. That is foolish. Now he has given the judicial branch the power to appoint people to the judicial branch. I mean, this is dangerously stupid philosophy. Why would you ever want to replace a constitutional process with a partisan process? That is inane. Why would you get rid of checks that the branches have over each other? That is madness. But leftists eat this stuff up, right? It's getting rid of the forward pass forever in order to win one football game. Thank God the genius framers made it so hard to amend the Constitution. That protects us from the kind of idiotic ideas that Beto O'Rourke and the Democratic Party have.
I know more than you.
They do this stuff all the time, though. Clinton lost the election, so let's get rid of the Electoral College. There's a reason the Electoral College is there. It's called federalism. We don't only have horizontal checks and balances between the branches of government, we have vertical checks and balances as well. That is called federalism. Democrats need to retake 9th grade civics. They like to call other people dictators. Every idea they have is to get rid of some check and balance in the government. As a party, the Democrats need to have a mass retaking of 9th grade civics. All right? The federalism prevents states with small populations from being slaves to the states with big populations. That's also why we have a Senate where seats are equally apportioned and not just a House of Representatives where California has 53 seats and Wyoming has 1 seat. Right? We are United States. We are not one big unitary state. We are not just called the state. We are called the United States. All right? Democrats want us to be the big unitary state of America. All right? Because they want to impose their will on the rest of us whenever they want without us having any say in it. That's why tons of liberal opinion writers out there want to abolish the Senate. That's a real thing. All right, John Dingell said, abolish the Senate because sparsely populated states are too powerful. And Vox said, that's a liberal media outlet. Vox said, he's right, it's not fair. It's not fair. Why should Montana have the same amount of Senate power as California? GQ had an opinion piece. The Senate is undemocratic. Abolish the Senate. Abolish the Electoral College. It's a huge leftist meltdown. Change the whole system.
No, wait, let me say something. Let me say something.
What they are saying when they say get rid of the Senate, get rid of the Electoral College, they're saying abolish federalism. Abolish the vertical checks and balances, which they've been trying to do for ages. And the reason they're saying it is because they are a short-sighted party with garbage ideas. They see a short-term benefit for their party, so they don't care about our constitutional political system. They want to treat the Constitution like an Etch-A-Sketch and shake it whenever they want. If you're an independent who listens to this show, I'm telling you, don't vote for people who want to change the system in order to benefit a political party in the short term. That is how the country is going to get destroyed if you do that. If you shake the Constitution and make the words disappear, then we don't have a country. Don't try to change the rules of the game to win. Just have better ideas. All right, that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed the show. If you haven't subscribed on iTunes yet, please do that. You can email the show at patriots@eddiezipperer.com. That's it for today. I'm out of here.
I was elected to lead, not to read. You just listened to Politics for Patriots with Eddie Zipper. Email the show at patriots@eddiezipper.com. And please subscribe.